and today on the Build Show, we are on one of Aarow Building, my company's new construction projects outside Columbia, Missouri, and I want to talk to you about why you're putting too many fasteners, most likely, in your USG sheetrock. Let's do it now. Okay, so as in so many of my videos, I talk about what the manufacturer says, what the industry standard says, what your engineer says, because there are tons of people that have figured this out and we're supposed to listen to them, not just write our own standards in our own brain for what we think is going to work. And I feel like the fastening of wallboard to our framing is one of those things that the majority of the folks that I've met, not everybody, but the majority of the folks that I've met have never read any of the standards, have never been educated as to the standards. They've just stood next to somebody who's done it for a really long time and listened to, you put 5 in this, you put 4 in that, you move to the next one. And that's the mentality of that side of most of the folks we've worked with in the past. That is not the case for this crew, JB Drywall here in Columbia, Missouri. Josh and his guys have been with us for a number of years now. They're fantastic. It's nice to be able to highlight their work because this is an underviewed part of what we do. We talk so much about building envelope and building science, and let's face it, the USG sheetrock install is not high on a lot of people's lists for whether or not they're doing it right or wrong. But I want to talk about how we've come to all of the standards that we use now, where they come from, and what you might be able to do to provide a better product for your clients. So let's first talk about wood construction, and that's what we're talking about today. We're not talking about steel or metal or ICF. We're talking about platform frame wood construction in North America, and we're talking about how our buildings are designed to ebb and flow with nature. We are not building moment frames for the most part. We're not putting together steel structures that are meant to be completely rigid and never yielding in any way. Our buildings have a tendency to balloon, to shrink, to shift. Wind can cause things to move. I talked with a client recently that said that they have that black Celotex wall sheathing, and every time the wind is over 15 miles per hour, they can feel the house moving and shifting. It's not necessarily the wrong thing. It's probably disheartening for them, but your building, your residential construction probably does it as well. Very few are designed for anything other than that. There is a lack of rigidity that actually provides durability to the building. The ability to not fight against all of that and to give a little bit is super important. It's also important to note that we're talking about non-fire rated assemblies. We're not talking about the details for your garage. We're not talking about a fire safe and how to install USG sheetrock on the inside of that. We are talking about your normal, traditional living space. And most of the information that I'm coming by is from GA 216, the Gypsum Association 216 version 2021. That is the applications and finishing guides. I know this sounds nerdy, but if you haven't read it, you should. It's important because it's the thing that governs how all gypsum wall panel is installed in North America, not just USG sheetrock. The manufacturers may have small tweaks to it here or there, but in effect, this is a governing body that says this is how we do it, no different than APA or anything like that. It's giving you the ability to follow the instructions, basically. So let's talk about floating angles first. When we talk about our buildings having that ebb and that flow and that ability to balloon or to shrink or compress, the first thing that comes up is trusses. My market is a truss-driven market. We do not see very many hand-cut roofs. In fact, when Steve Basic and I work together, a lot of times we rely on a truss roof because we want no interior load-bearing partitions so that we can detail our air barrier on our ceiling. This house is no different. We have trusses. In fact, these trusses have an elevation change. This volume is 10 feet, that volume is 8 feet. Or 8.5, and there is a change in the truss. The bottom quarter of the truss is not even flat. This truss will most likely shift and move. We do all sorts of special connections for our framing, from our wall plate to our trusses. To allow for that, you have to do the same for your USG sheetrock. So in effect, what the GA 216 allows is to not put a fastener in the dead corner of every single piece. It allows you to step those fasteners back on ceilings and walls, both almost 8 inches, and then you have just a little bit of the ability of that panel to shift and move even after it's taped, to have a little bit of elasticity. And that elasticity is what's going to allow the thing to not crack. It's when we try to make gypsum rigid that then we're going to have problems. The same thing that happens for that ceiling to wall connection can actually happen for wall to wall with the adjacent walls. So the first panel that goes in this instance, that panel went in first. The panel behind me went in and tied in. The second panel is the only one that got a fastener, so that we have a little bit of that flexibility, a little bit of elasticity in the corner. Too many fasteners makes it more rigid. The more rigid it is, the more likely it's going to crack. Things that are elastic can bend, can flex, can move. Things that are rigid cannot. The other thing that we have here is we have a full glue assembly. Now, the glue allows you to put less fasteners. The glue allows for a little bit of elasticity long term. Make sure that you're also reading the glue manufacturer's details. These guys are amazing. Josh and his guys are amazing. And when I got here and we were looking at everything, I said, hold on, have you guys ever read the bottle of glue? Because I think you're not putting enough on. I pulled one of the cans of glue out. We looked at it together. The very first sentence said basically what they were doing was not sufficient. And the owner of the company, Josh, said, okay, we're going to change from now on. This is what we're doing. We'll order more glue because we need to be using more glue if we're going to count on this. So again, GA216 allows for a full glue. It has different standards for ceiling, load-bearing partitions and non-load-bearing partitions. So if you're going to do a full glue and you're on the ceiling, your fasteners can be 16 inches apart. It's less nail heads to have to deal with, or less screws to deal with. Sorry, we use screws in our market. It's less screws to have to try to cover over. If we're doing load-bearing partitions, like our exterior walls here, the screw pattern is no more than 16 inches apart. But if we're doing non-load-bearing walls like the one behind me, we have 24 inches, meaning this 4-foot wide panel only has 3 screws or 3 fasteners per stud, even though they are completely full glued as well. Knowing that standard allows for a little less of a connection, which allows for a little more elasticity, if you will. Last thing in this video that I want to talk to you about is not necessarily the same vein, but I think it is. It's butt boards and the use of butt boards, especially on ceilings and large raking walls where you're concerned with seeing that butt joint. So this butt joint behind me doesn't actually break over top of a framing member. You can note that there's not a screw below it. Not breaking on a framing member means both of those are floating. So we in essence have the same theory as over here. We have a floating connection that can be a little more elastic. A butt board, in our instance, the ones that we're able to come by, are like a 6 or 7 inch wide piece of OSB that has a tapered, like butterfly shape on the back side of the drywall. So you screw it to one side, you screw it to the other side, and in essence, it takes that butt joint and bends it in just a tiny bit, and it makes that butt substantially closer, shape-wise, to a taper. So while we have a factory edge there still, it's that factory that's not tapered. Now, because of the way we fastened it, is closer to being tapered, and it's a little easier to hide, and we've also allowed those ends to be able to have a tiny bit of elasticity. That's something that, especially on a ceiling like this that we're doing a level 5 finish on, they used butt boards across all of this. Anywhere that we can use a butt board on the walls, we did. And then all of our smaller rooms on this house, we sized our rock to go corner to corner so we don't have to worry about those butts ever showing up. So what we've done here is we've floated our corners, our angles, both our ceiling to wall and our inside corners, and we've used a glue-assisted fastening so that we can have less mechanical fasteners, and then we've partnered all of that with butt boards, and all of this is less screws, less labor, less ability to show all of our seams and butts or fasteners, and a little bit of elasticity that will hopefully make the assembly be a little bit more crack-free in the long run. And anytime we can avoid a callback because we did something right the first time, we'll call that a win. So again, I'm referencing the Gypsum Association 216-2021. Read it, understand what it says, look at what USG Sheetrock, especially their lightweight products, allow and their installation methods. Partner the two with your fasteners and your glue, and then go from there and hopefully have a better installed product in the end for your client that is a little bit less of a warranty headache or nightmare for you. Till next time, thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out the Unbuild It podcast. That's Steve Basic, Peter Yost, and myself talking building, building science, the business of building, and generally putting up with Steve's antics. And have a good day.